Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's a pretty exciting day. There's a couple of things going on today. Now, one of them was something that was kind of teased the last weekend. Secret Lab, which is a company that makes gaming chairs, they teased something Final Fantasy 14 related late last week, and I'm gonna be in on that. I can't talk about it much in this video, but if you are looking to buy a new gaming chair, you might want to be keeping an eye on this channel soonish, sometime today, because if you're gonna buy it, you should use my link to support the channel, because why not? Be a cool thing to do. And on top of that, the benchmark should be out today. It's probably out by the time you guys see this, the updated benchmark. So I'm going to be working on a video for that, and that'll be out later today as well. But other than that, I've got a lot to do. Actually, I got to go to the grocery store, and I want to go while it's still light out. So let's get through this video, and we'll go from there. Thanks to all the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. Nobody has to support. Anyone who does support is doing so completely optionally, because everything's available for free here on YouTube. So yeah, just continue to enjoy the content and stay subscribed and watch stuff, and that's good enough for me. But anyway, let's get on to the Q&A. Hashtag Mondays with Mrhappy. Hey, Haps, how are you? I'm doing all right. You doing good? You're doing good. 3 quick questions. Wow, this is 3 questions. Have we heard anything about Viper having the same speed bonus as Ninja? Do you mean the movement speed? I don't think they've said anything of the sort. Are we expecting Viper to have higher DPS with less utility than Ninja, or is there some other differentiating factor between them we can expect? Well, based on the live letter, we didn't see anything other than, so I released a video on Viper based on the live letter stuff. And the closest thing they had was like a Death's Design style debuff, but that only works on a Viper's DPS if it's like Death's Design, which is how they described it. And so I don't think there was anything. So I guess we'd have to see the numbers to know. Like someone's going to have to calculate out when we actually know more about the job. So the differentiating factor, though, is the gameplay loop, which, you know, based on the live letter is significantly different than Ninjas. If anything, it's closer to Reapers. Oh, and when are you hoping to make a video on pre-X-Pack prep? Probably in the next, I'm going to say probably within the, like a week and a half, probably I'll put it out. I like to put it out kind of close, but obviously people also need to know about it. It needs to be out before June 18th for a couple of reasons. One, I won't be here June 18th. I'm going to be going on a trip. And 2, that's the week where prep really begins. That's the weekly reset where it begins. So yeah, before June 18th is what I can say for certain. There was a question asking me what my 2 favorite Scions were. I feel like I got that question on Twitch the other day, and I don't really have an answer because I don't really have a favorite Scion. So I just kind of skipped that question. Apologies. Hashtag Mrhappy's with Monday. All right, no hello, cool. As a fellow 11 player, you and I both know we can't have Echoes of Vana'diel without involving the Nexus of all realities, the Walk of Echoes. No, I don't think they go anywhere near the Walk of Echoes, because, so you got to remember that, okay, I can't say this for certain, but we're pretty sure that they're going to treat this more like Ivalice raids and less like the Nier raids. When it comes to the Evolution raids, they didn't say that the tactics Ivalice was in 14. There was a location in 14's universe called Ivalice, and they completely opened it up and explored it based on Final Fantasy 14 lore. Fairly certain that's going to happen here with 11, in which case the Walk of Echoes, I don't know, it'd be kind of strange because it's used really more to connect the various alternate realities of Vana'diel. And for those who don't know the lore, the Vana'diel you played in is the only one that survived basically a world-ending catastrophe. So there's a whole lot more to it, but I sincerely doubt the Walk of Echoes is anywhere near it. I feel like Echoes is, again, more of a play on the Final Fantasy 14 term of what the Echo is used for. By the way, when you finish Royal's quest at 14, she actually does not return to Vana'diel. The Force that won't let her. Okay, so I have to be very clear about something. It has been stated many times that collaboration style events like that are not canon in Final Fantasy XIV's world. So things like the Yokai Watch event, Monster Hunter, they're considered not canon because they don't want to have to actually explain lore-wise why those events are actually taking place. Number 2, it's believed by the 11 players that the final mission in Rhapsodies is her coming back, because there's a skill that she has that she uses in Final Fantasy XIV that she only uses in 11 after she disappears and comes back for a time. So that's why that's believed amongst Final Fantasy 11 players. So I'm fairly confident we're not going to Vana'diel in the same sense that we're hopping over to 11. I'm fairly certain they're just going to explain a Vana'diel that existed in like ancient times or something like that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hi. Good day. Thank you. Congratulations on the various 10-year marks. Thanks. My group just cleared Uwu. Congratulations. First ultimate for all of us. One issue we ran into is doing too much. Oh my God. I hate that. This is a problem. I know exactly what you're going to say. There were times we didn't have LB3 for the transitional phase. Did not get LB3 back before the second ultimate cast. Yeah, it's a seriously dumb issue that like actually straight up needs to be addressed. Like there should never be a fight with a mandatory LB3 where the fight years down the line doesn't provide you with the LB3 in some capacity. Yeah, you have to either slow DPS. One thing you can do in the latter half of Uwu is you can deliberately get hit by Ifrit's dash during a predation, which was actually a week 1 strat where you barely survive that. You get a ton of LB, and then it also just makes doing it easier because the movement is way less strict. Does this happen in any other ultimate? No. Like the closest you get is in UCOB. You don't get, you either get LB2 or LB3 going into phase 3, but there's a strategy for both of those scenarios. I don't think T ever runs into an issue of you not having LB3 by the time you get to the end of Perfect Alexander, because you don't use the LB for anything else prior to that. You just don't use it. And then definitely not in DSR and top. So yeah, no, it's super silly, and I wish they'd do something about it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. Hope your week has gone well. It's been a really good week. Thank you. First time asker, long time listener. Welcome. So Endwalker was the first expansion where I progged Savage level content on release and had a great time. Reaper for the first 2 tiers. Dancer for the third since my static needed a fizz range. Uh-oh. You've made a terrible mistake. Slipping into fizz range. As I grew more serious about high-end content, one thing I became more and more frustrated with was crit variance. You're telling me. When say a Communio can hit for under 40k if you get unlucky, while crit direct hit can hit for close to 100k, it so often made things feel out of my control, even more so on Dancer where the whole party's crit luck matters. Question is if you think this is actually a problem. Oh, it's a huge problem. It's because they've swung so much of our damage profile into our 2-minute buff windows because we're getting all these multipliers on our damage from the various damage sources, and then crit and direct hit are multiplying that as well. So you end up with these insanely high numbers some of the time and a more reasonable, consistent amount of numbers other times. Now, in theory, based on the percentage odds, things level out and you get an average DPS that happens, pull to pull, that you could say is like, yeah, you pull it, 20, 30 times and you get something that's manageable, that's calculatable, that's reliable. But that's not how RNG works. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really bad. And yeah, no, that was a huge complaint of mine. And honestly, I think there's a number of issues. I've covered this in a handful of videos that direct hit existing is meaningless. It just is another way to amp up the damage variance that isn't good. Crit being as strong as it is another major issue. The amount of multiplication it gives on both the chance and the total damage. Like if they took the damage amp out of it, it would probably be better for the game, or they would separate crit rate and crit damage into 2 different stats, although then you have to worry about people just stacking 2 different stats instead of stacking 1 and then taking a secondary. Yeah, no, it's an issue, and thus far, with the information they've shown us for Dawn Trail, we haven't determined if that's still going to be the case. That's something that's really technical, knowing what the calculations are on the individual stats. But I don't know. I hope they address it at some point because it is a serious issue with the game. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. I wanted to know what happens with BIS for gear and weapons come expansion. Is there any point on working on Manderville weapons for all jobs I can, or will weapons and gear be replaced? So the biggest reason is you like the way that they look, because glam is forever. The weapons and armor that you can get now that's best in slot will be useful until about the halfway point of the leveling process. Some people choose to continue to ride out the gear after that point, but realistically, you're supposed to start replacing armor at the X5 dungeon. So in this upcoming expansion, 95. And then the weapon usually can go by 97, but that depends. Usually the relic weapon is so good that people really do ride it out until the very end. But at the end of the day, they will be glam. So if you don't want them for glam, don't feel obligated to work on them, unless you also want achievement points. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi. I'm Mr. Wait, you're Mr. All right. Look, we went through a roller coaster there, but you got it in the end. Hello. Hi. Hope all is well with you and the cats. Doing swell. Thank you. Heard you last week or maybe 2 weeks ago say you didn't think they would implement smaller hitboxes. Well, it wasn't a week or two ago because we knew a week or two ago that it was happening. While I agree with you, wouldn't the earliest we would see changes be 8.0? If I'm not mistaken, didn't he make comments about changes 4 months ago, which would be enough time to test and implement changes like that? I said So it wasn't a week or two ago that I said I did. Well, okay, let me rephrase. When I said I didn't think it before they said it. Maybe that wasn't clear, or maybe that's what you mean. Again, this is just a bit of text to have to read through right here. I never thought that they were going to do it in the first place, but we know for a fact that is a change coming in Dawn Trail. It's anything else more severe than that. What I want to do is I want to temper people's expectations about the whole game being made more difficult or adding a little more stress back into the game, because people took that statement, and even though he clarified that it would be something they would gradually do over time, they rode with it, and a lot of us began speculating about all the things they could do to make the game, quote, more stressful and bring back some of that, or I guess, yeah, bring back some of the stress, but reduce some of the homogenization of design in both encounters and in jobs. They haven't indicated they're doing any of that, and the only stuff they have indicated is the hitbox stuff and potentially stuff coming to job changes in 8.0, where they said they want to bring a little bit more individual job flair back in 8.0. But he said that they can't really think about that yet. We'll worry about that later. But yeah, no, that's happening. The smaller hitboxes thing is happening. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hi. Always look forward to your content. Thanks. It gets me through the long work week. Watching this between DSR lock. Oh, good luck. P6 and Rage. Wait, so Double Dragon and Rage. Yeah, good luck. You're almost there. I have a couple of hopefully short questions for you. One being, do you ever feel pressure during prog when you mess up, and how do you keep the vibes good when it seems like some people aren't happy with the group's progression? I'm someone who's normally unhappy with progression. Like I hold myself accountable to a pretty high standard in prog in terms of mechanical consistency. So when we're not making progression because of a lack of mechanical consistency across other people, honestly, it just becomes about kind of shutting that out and just making sure that I'm not one of those people. I focus on my own performance. I focus on my own skills. And that helps me kind of keep a level head. Because when you start worrying about every individual aspect that's out of your control, you stop playing to your best, and then it's worse for everybody on the team. So that's really all it is. It's just years of getting used to kind of thinking about things in a certain way. And you'll slip and you'll slide, and you'll have moments where you're like, oh my goodness. And you'll kind of just not have fun with where you are. And then you'll swing back, and you'll maybe get a small dopamine hit from a bit of progress, and then chatting and all sorts of stuff. It's just an emotional swing back and forth. Second question, forgive me if this is too personal, but what are your thoughts about owning a house? Like a real house? So not a 14 house? I mean, younger and seeing how expensive houses are, I'm struggling. Yeah, you mean a real house. So A, I don't own a real house, so I feel like I'm not qualified to talk about owning a house. Number two, I'm not a big fan of the idea of owning a house unless I happen to already be in a stable financial situation that makes for a very large down payment and manageable monthly payments. Now, I live in California right now. There's almost no universe in which I buy a house in California. I'd have to get we would need the Twitch Fat Black Chocobo event to come back like 3 or 4 times before I'd even consider, because the last thing I want to do is go into this massive several $100,000 debt when my life is not even figured out yet. And I know some people like, you own the property and, you can always rent it out or yada. I'm not thinking about doing all that. I don't want to have to do all that. I just want assets that I own to grow in value and maybe in this case generates money. So I'm not an idea of owning a home. And I think we're in a day and age where the idea of living at home with family to save costs, to make sure that you can take care of any debts that you have as a young person, is way more important than getting out and owning a house as soon as possible. If you are in a financial situation where you can, and it makes sense, and you've thought it through and not just made the decision just immediately, then, go right ahead. It's your life. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do with their life. I personally am not interested in owning a home anytime in the near future. And I know very few people are. In fact, most of my friends who do own homes just complain all the time. And I'm like, that's not helping me make a decision. But it's really where you live, what your current life is. There's no yes or no answer to that. It would be silly to act like I could tell everyone, no, don't own a home, or yeah, you should go. It just doesn't make sense for me to do that. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Haps. Hi. I'm getting tired for some reason. One thing I'm hoping for in the new expedition content is a way to play with friends easier who may start or progress the content at a different time than you. Things like being unable to party with new players in Eureka without giving them massive EXP penalties makes it frustrating. Absolutely. Think a feature like party level sync for EXP. Bro, we were asking for level sync in Eureka for years. Even 11 has level sync because of the same exact problem. That was why when Pagos came out, I was like, it really highlights how they want to be kind of more 11-esque. But even 11 has figured out solutions to some of these things that are not present or aren't able to be built as easily for general use. Like, we obviously have level sync for fates, but there's no system that allows you to just do it from your party list. That would need to be developed from scratch. So yeah, no, 100%. Now, I will say this, Bozia solved this issue for the most part. The biggest downside to Bozia is that you don't have the entire map unlocked right away, but that doesn't stop you from grouping up and at least going to the NMs on the lower part or working together on that front. You can also still collect drops from the people that are on the higher part if they're off killing monsters. So there's even some way to kind of share rewards in that sense. But I do think they need to really factor this in. This was a major problem with Eureka on content, not really a problem anymore now because people can just rush from NM to NM, but they definitely need to consider it. Hashtag with Dawn Trail Mondays until Mr. Happy. I'm very confused. That's probably my favorite one yet. I'm glad it's your favorite. Hola, hi, how are you and the cats doing? Swell. I just noticed Aloha's behind me. Also take a non-toxic amount of catnip for them. I don't want the catnip. Aloha doesn't even like catnip. Ivy does, though. 2 questions. 1, who's your favorite story trial? We've gotten story trial. It's kind of tough. I think Thornton is always going to be up there. As much as I meme about the whole E thing, I still remember the moment when I kind of realized exactly what I was experiencing, and that memory really sticks to me. I think if I were to look at it more objectively, it would probably be Nidhogg, but I'm going to go with Thornton. 2, besides gaming and going to the gym, do you have any other hobbies? I used to when I was younger. I did amateur hip-hop dancing in like middle school and high school. I did, obviously DDR counts kind of in both of these categories, but I did compete locally in DDR when I was younger. I was telling stories about how our friends, we used to get do BB gun matches and stuff like that, paintball. And like when I was young, I had a lot of time for all that stuff. So I definitely made time for more hobbies. Nowadays, the closest thing I have to an additional hobby is kind of cooking. I haven't done much in the way of creative cooking nowadays, just because A, I've been keeping a little bit more careful about the things that I eat, and B, because I'm trying to focus a lot on my content. I'm just making sure I get the calories and the macronutrients that I need, which is really simple for me to do without me doing any complicated cooking. So that way I can get into the kitchen, get out of the kitchen, and get back to working on stuff for you guys. But I'd say that's probably the next closest thing is probably cooking, because during the pandemic, I needed another creative outlet, just something that worked for me. And cooking really took the spot. I was making all sorts of things that I never made before, learned to make, and it was great, and it was a freeing experience, one that I can carry for the rest of my life. So, yeah, I'm going to go with cooking as the other one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. How does materia conversion work in expansion launch? Works the same as it always has. Do we have to be level 100 to be able to get lucky and convert? No. As soon as the servers go live, you can start exchanging and hope for the upgrades. Some people go right there, and that's the first thing they do to try and sell off really early tier 11 and potentially 12 if they're willing to gamble the 11s, crafting and gathering materia. So if you want to go do that with whatever hundreds or thousands of materia you have, go right ahead. Hashtag Mondays with the happy one. Hello, hi, and hope you and the zooming cats are doing fine. Well, they're not zooming right now, thankfully. Aloha's very chill. 2 questions from a returning player. Haven't played for good almost 2 years due to real life stuff and just got back into the game. Welcome. First, what would you recommend for finding people to play/clear content with? I've always had this issue that I love the game, but would basically have nobody to play with. I would join FCs, but that wouldn't change much. Yeah, you have to, even if you join FCs, Discords, whatever, you kind of have to be willing to participate in the social dynamics that those social avenues even offer. Like, you could join a Discord, but if you never talk in the Discord, then you're not being social. I always just say join Party Finders. Like, that's it. If you want to do something specific, like an endgame raid, just do Party Finder. Don't think about it. If you want like just a group of people, then you just need to look until you find an actually social link shell / free company or something or other. And for the second question, you mentioned last week the official forums are, to put it mildly, not a nice place. Do you mind telling us why? There's like 4 or 5 people who just troll and circle jerk every other post. And then like it feels like that number gradually increases over time. There's like a permanent permeating negativeness to literally anything and everything that you could possibly imagine. And I don't just mean feedback. I mean like the doom and gloom. Like I like to say this. If you think if Twitter is the equivalent of like a real world doom scroll, then the Final Fantasy 14 forums is a Final Fantasy 14 specific doom scroll. You would never assume the game had any players or was popular at all or had anyone who liked it or loved it. You'd think it was still in 1.0 based on the way the official forums talk about it. So it's not great. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. How's it going? It's going good. Thanks. I have a couple of 1,000 current materia 9 and 10. Like to hear that. I see you're a hunter. Laying around in the form of clusters. Is there a specific materia type to get from said clusters from Mutamix once the expansion drops, or does the type of materia used not mean anything? So whatever type of materia you put into Mutamix is a type you cannot get out. So if you give him 5 critical materia, the only materia you can't get back from him is a critical hit materia. But if you give him a crit, direct hit, determination, skill speed, tenacity materia, if you give him all 5 of those, you can't get any of those back. So generally when you're aiming for higher value materia, you put forth the ones that aren't valuable and you put one of each of them. So you put like 1 tenacity, 1 skill speed, 1 spell speed. I don't know. What's another? I mean, I guess 1 determination, but the idea is that by eliminating all the combat types, you generally narrow it down more into crafting and gathering, which more often sell for higher values. So that's the usual strat when it comes to transmutation with Mutamix. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Long-time watcher, first-time asker. Welcome. So I have a first-time bonus of a cheat day on me. I don't do cheat days. I just eat what I want some of the time. Sizzling ribeye with onions, green peppers, and much. I wouldn't want green peppers with a ribeye. I feel like I'd rather have... I noticed you didn't have any carbs here, so I would definitely want a baked potato, a loaded baked potato. Yeah, green peppers, I'd rather just have either griddled onions with a sauce made out of the blood of the ribeye, or you could do a cream sauce with the mushrooms, like a garlic truffle cream sauce to put over it, butter sauce actually. That would be nice. But I would also want a potato on the side. So, sorry, cooking. If that's what you're into. Congrats on the 10-year partnership with Twitch. Thank you. Possible 7 spoiler alert ahead. Well, I'll be the judge of that. For my question, not 14, but I was curious what your thoughts were on Rebirth. Finishing it, I was kind of expecting you to do a video on the ending or speculation on differences from the original. Do you think we're headed for an alternate ending from the original? Thank you for taking your time. Yeah, that's obviously been a big chat. I don't think that's really... I think most people are aware that there's been at least a discussion of some sort regarding remake and rebirth with that. And I didn't make a video because I didn't think it was as complicated as everyone was trying to make it out to be. I actually felt far more... what's the word I'm looking for? I felt much less confused at the end of Rebirth than I was at the end of Remake. So, I'm not going to answer the question directly. I do think different things will happen. That is, I guess, the extent of my answer. Hashtag Mr. Happy's Happy Mondays with Mr. That got me for some reason. It's like a palindrome at some point, both words. Hi. A fun question for you. We're just a month away from DT's release, so I got a DT-related question. Out of the zones they've shown for Dawn Trail so far, which one is your favorite? Well, Final Fantasy X is one of my top 3 favorite Final Fantasies, so Heritage Found basically being the Thunder Plains has to be at the top of my list. Now, obviously, there's the curiosity about the giant dome there. You know, we can assume that Solution 9 as well as the Arcadian are both located inside of said dome. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for that zone in particular. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Do you think 14 will ever get rid of the Resurrection Sickness stat penalty or the 2-minute buff window? No to Resurrection Sickness ever. Unless they get rid of reses, in which case, yeah, then the sickness is gone technically. 2-minute buff window. I think there will always be a 2-minute buff window from this point on, but that problem is not that there's a 2-minute buff window. The problem is it's the only major buff window where you can influence the rest of your team's outcome. So like somebody else uses a buff, you do really well during that buff. Their contribution through their buff is now more valuable because you played better. What Shadowbringers and the previous expansions before it did was making it so that there were little buff windows spread constantly throughout, you know, one at 60, one at 2, one at 3, and they're all different. So it meant that there were less variables. If you maybe messed up on one, you could make up for it in another, etc., etc. But I think the 2-minute buff windows have always been there. They just haven't always been the only major buff window, and I think that's going to stay. I don't think they'll ever get, I don't think you'll get rid of the 2-minute buff window anytime. I mean, maybe they said they want to do the game for another 10 years. Who's to say they won't change it? But I don't have the expectation that they will. In comparison, WoW's 10-minute party buff window. Yeah, I know it. They have lust and heroism. Yeah. I don't think you'll ever see anything WoW-esque, but definitely not. They're definitely not getting rid of resurrection. So if you are not penalized for resurrection for anything other than being dead for like 10 to 15, no, like I said, the only way is if they actually limit the amount of times you can be rest or remove resurrections in combat altogether. It's the only way they're getting rid of resurrection sickness. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi. I watched your interview with Quasi and it was really great. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I got questions. Is it because Heavensward only has a good story, so people rank it as the best story in the game? I mean, some people think it's their favorite, but a lot of people lean more towards Shadowbringers. I've definitely seen a lot more Shadowbringers lovers, especially because the game kind of blew up during Shadowbringers, so it kind of makes sense, where people go nuts for that. So do you think the game will be more popular if the story is optional? No, it doesn't change what the core game is. Like if you like the gameplay, but don't like the story, you skip the story and just focus on playing the game. And if you don't like the way the game plays, but you like the story, you might finish it for the story. If you don't like either, there's no saving it. So I don't see any way in which the story, now I will say this, the barrier for entry would be lower. But oh God, I just imagine leveling. They'd have to completely revamp leveling if the story was optional. Ugh. I want to imagine that. No, I don't think it would help that much. There would there would be some people who hopped in because they could freely skip the story, but odds are they wouldn't stick with it because that is a huge portion of the game's content. And I always like to say it's not worth rushing to the end just to get to, you know, just to get to the end because there's an actual end in 14 at any given patch. So yeah, no, I don't think it would help much. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hashtag only honest Lala player. I don't know what that means, but okay. Hello, first time asker, long time watcher. Welcome. I play 14 on PC and console with keyboard and controller respectively. However, I'm disabled, so typing can be difficult, so it's hard to make friends in game. Notice that PlayStation, you can speak to text. I thought this was my answer to the problem, but then I get to 14, and for my disappointment, the PlayStation keyboard removes the option for speak to text. Why does it do that? I mean, I guess it's because the 14 dev team would have to very specifically design the game for it. But if your game's on PS5 and you can add, dude, that would be such a big thing if they could do that and then market it. Yeah, they should definitely do that. I don't think it's on their radar, but someone should bring it up to them for sure. And question 2, in terms of limited jobs, I'd like them to give us a toggle you can switch between a real that will never happen. It doesn't matter if you want it, it's never going to happen. That's essentially the equivalent of them having to make new jobs entirely. And I guarantee you right now, if they told us, okay, let's say in 8.0, they told us that we were getting 2 new jobs, right? One was, I don't know. We're guessing it's going to be a Fizz range next expansion. So I don't know, the Ranger. I don't know. Let's go with a random one. They say they were adding Ranger, and then the other announcement is that Blue Mage is getting getting a real job. You know, that's gonna. So you think some people would like that, but essentially it would have to take away a job for like tank or healer at that point, and on top of that. Or they'd have to do three different jobs. So I don't think there's a situation where they win. So they can't just add a toggle. They need to design a job from scratch to do this. And could they? Sure, it's their game. Are they ever going to? Is it a realistic thing to think? Absolutely not. They'll never do it. All right, and those are the majority of questions. There was a handful that I just wanted to handle here at the end. There was one person who asked the same question as they did last week, and I'm positive I answered it. It was about Viper and their job identity with no like Viper-like abilities. I'm positive I answered that last week. So if you missed it, I apologize, but I'm like certain I answered it in the lightning round section. Then there was one about finding a group of players to raid with. I always say just party finder, and if there's none on your data center, which you're on Goblin, so that's Crystal, then go to a different data center and try there. So there was that one. What was another one? I know there were more that I looked at and said I'll save that for the end. Oh, somebody asked me about a fantasy raid team. Bro, I don't even know most of the people who play this game. When I log out of 14 at the end of the day, I like separate myself from Final Fantasy 14 and like interacting with people from it, unless like I have friends that I'm like talking to. So I barely even know most of the raiders. All the ones I know are very public facing, and I'm sure that's not where all of the talent is. So on top of that, I'd have to, like, that's not something you could answer in a go. Like, I would want stats. I would want to review footage. I don't want to start anything either. So no, that's definitely not going to be it. There's someone asking about the ocean fishing, a dumbed down ocean fishing guide. And then for me to make a video on how to decipher Lulu tools. I think you're just rushing. If you just slow down and look at all that stuff very slowly without looking to rush to an answer, there is a good amount of information, and it's all relevant information. So I'd recommend just slowing down and really trying to stop and comprehend the things that you're reading or looking at, more so than look for faster and faster answers to trying to get an answer to that. Someone was asking if they're going to add another form of cordial. I mean, maybe if GP gets high enough, but they don't want to give you a full GP regeneration anymore. They want you to only get 400 back. So I sincerely doubt it. Someone asked if we know what kind of mounts the Dawn Trail Extremes will have. No, we didn't know anything about the what's it called mounts ahead of time either. The Endwalker mounts at a time either. I think they showed one to us maybe in the last live letter before the expansion launch. That might be when we got it. What was another one that I kind of skipped through because I said I would answer it at the end? I know there's definitely more. No, there's that one. No. I know, I could have swore there were more. Favorite vegetable, potato. There you go. That was one. Yeah, I already mentioned the two favorite sides. I thought there was another one, but maybe I'm scrolling too quick and I'm just missing it. But I'm almost certain that there was another one that I like skipped over because I didn't really have a good answer for it, or I wanted to do it here at the end. But again, I'm not seeing it. So maybe I'm just imagining things. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. So thank you for watching. If you have a question, please ask it in the comment section of the video below. Keep an eye out for that video that I mentioned that's going to be coming regarding a certain chair that I'm going to, not the one I'm sitting in right now, but, you know, a certain chair that if you buy it, you know, you could directly support the channel. If you want to buy the chair, you know, so you don't have to buy the chair, but if you want to buy the chair, you know, it's just saying. And thanks to all the sponsors over on Patreon. You don't have to support because all my content's available for free, but if you choose to, you're cool. I like it. Anyway, with that, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.